Yeah, there's just no real good way to frame this, and I'm sorry. But hello, everyone. Thanks for coming outside with me today. This is going to be a small chunk of a much larger video and a much larger collection of videos as I go throughout this week here, filming this all for you. So I've been getting a bunch of questions now as we've kind of gone through the past hunting season. A lot of people have been introduced to the sport of archery, which is awesome. But I'm getting a lot of questions from folks about, can I really kind of tune any arrow by tuning my bow? And the answer is like 98% yes. And just to illustrate, to start off, and I've done a whole bunch of numbers and things on this paper here, I just want to illustrate that your form and your bow make up much more of the equation than the arrow, at least in my opinion, the way I see it. The way you grip and the repeatability of your grip, your face pressure, how you release, all those things are so vastly important. People focus a lot on the arrow, they focus a lot on the bow, but you yourself as an archer, I know when I make a bad shot, and it really shows in the tuning process and shows my group sizes downrange. Now I have a video, and I'll put it in the description below, about what makes a forgiving bow and forgiving arrow setup, and that is something to consider. But I just want to show you here, I assembled in this muck boot down here a whole collection of arrows that I have from the past, that, and some of them have no business being shot out of my bows based on their spine, their dynamic and static spine, and how they behave coming out of the bow. So I'm going to zoom in here to this paper. I have everything numbered and labeled, and you can see that without any rest adjustment already, or any of the set technology or deadlock or yoke tuning or whatever your bow has, we've almost have a perfect bullet hole with almost all of these shafts. So let's zoom in and talk about them. So I'll dive into all the arrow builds at a later time and go through all the ins and outs of what made these arrows at the particular given point in their life. But right here, let's just start. We'll go top row, bottom row, and just talk about the intricacies of all of them as we go through. The number one arrow here is a Victory V-Force arrow. This is my current hunting arrow. It is a 300 spine, a V-Force Gamer, and has a 125 grain point in here. It is cut to 31 inches, and as you can see, it is a perfect bullet hole. This thing is tuned to perfection, absolutely exactly what you want. So V-Force 300 left helical, and as you notice, we have right helical and left helical across the board. It was just something else I just wanted to add to the picture. 300 spine, left helical. As you can see, it's tuned to be a perfect bullet hole. We are 8 feet from the target using my Elite Cure, 31 inches of draw at 60 pounds. Let's keep moving over to the right. We have a Axis arrow, a 204. This is another left helical here. This is a 300 spine Axis. And as you can see here, it is cut to 29 inches, and I'm using a standard 100 grain point. As you can see, this is also dadgum. I mean, if not a bullet hole, it is within a 16th, or excuse me, a 32nd to a 64th. I would call that a bullet hole. So this arrow is using a 100 grain point, and it's actually stiffer dynamically because it's 2 inches shorter than this one, and it still shoots a perfect bullet hole. That shouldn't happen. It's a 204. This is a 245. So it just goes to show you that your bow with your form can eat two totally different arrows, and everything works out just fine. So just something to keep in mind as we go through some of these arrows. The next one here is a VTAC 23 from Victory. This is my 3D and indoor arrow. This is a 380 spine, very soft compared to these first two, but it's soft because it's dynamically going to be stiffer because it is a 23 diameter arrow. 30 inches, 125 grain point, still left helical, and you'll notice here that it has a little bit of a high and definitely a left tear. So definitely not unmanageable. Like I said, we're 8 feet from the target. That is probably about 3/8 to a half inch of a tear. That is not bad whatsoever. The set technology or your regular rest movement will get rid of that, no problem. Continuing on, we have one of my original arrows that I hunted with, an Easton Carbon Storm. I have custom wrapped and fletched these. This is a 340, very heavy for a 340. Great hunting arrow, have a 125 grain point, cut to 29 inches. Again, this one's done with a right helical, and it is a perfect bullet hole, or very darn close to it. It actually might even be a little bit on the knock right side. But still, that is almost a perfect bullet hole. We have a 340 shaft, 100 grain point, cut to 29 inches, 125 grain point, has no business shooting a perfect bullet hole based off of the other shafts that have shot a perfect bullet hole, which are a totally different spine. Again, form comes to be the major key here. Moving now down to the Beeman ICS Hunter. This is an OG of all arrows here. 4-inch plastic vanes, 400 spine, very light. Right helical from the factory, 30 inches, 100 grain point, and we are just like the 380 VTAC. We're a little bit high and a little bit left. Again, not something that we couldn't undo. Now, I wouldn't recommend shooting a spine this soft. I should be shooting a 300 spine all day, and if I bump it to like 150, 175 up front, I should be shooting a 250. Right here, this is way too soft, and it is very manageable in terms of its spine. Very pleased with how that arrow flew. The next one is a gold tip cut down, and this one here, we have a 340. This is just a 6,000ths, if not even greater of a 6,000ths, cut right out of the Walmart bargain bin. 340 spine, right helical, 30.5 inches, 100 grain point, and again, we're still a little bit high and left. So again, all of our soft arrows in terms of their spine have ended up a little bit left, although this one was kind of an anomaly, but even still, this is even closer than the other two. Very easy to tune that out. So far we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 arrows that are all under spine, but still incredibly manageable with a little bit of rest movement, yoke tuning, or set technology, deadlock, cam shift, whatever. This next one here is a gold tip hunter. This one's known as the Extreme Hunter, but it's basically the original hunter. 200 grains up front. This arrow has no business being in this test whatsoever. And looky here, we have the gold tip hunter, 400 spine with a right helical. Gold tip cut down was also right helical, forgot to mention. 29.5 inches with 200 grains up front. And again, it's knock high and left. Maybe even really more just knock high than anything else. 200 grains up front, 400 spine, cut to 29.5 inches. This arrow has no business being shot out of a 31-inch draw, 60-pound cure. Has no business whatsoever. And it still almost shoots a perfect bullet hole at 8 feet. I mean, it's a budget arrow. This isn't anything special here, folks. Like, you can tune it. I would never recommend you shoot a 400 spine, 200 grains or more up front out of a 31-inch draw, 60-pound bow. But just to show you that it is definitely possible. There's a reason that target archers can get these really wonky shaft combinations to fly really well. It's not because they stick 17 different point weights into the front end. It's because they know how to tune their bow. And it's not hard. We're going to have this, like I said, a larger part of a video. And it's going to go through tuning each one of these shafts that aren't already a perfect bullet hole to a perfect bullet hole. So stick around later on the channel for that. The next one is an XX75 aluminum, the OG. Very hard right helical on this one. This is a 2315, which is about a 330, 340 spine. I think it's actually really a 337. Right helical, like I said, 31 inches, 125 grain point, and it is almost, if not an actual perfect bullet hole right there. Again, this arrow is a little bit on the weak side. It is dynamically okay though, because of how thick this wall is compared to, or the overall diameter is compared to a regular carbon arrow. But like that means that like the axis, for example, has no business being up here, right? This Carbon Storm at 340 has no business being up here, being a bullet hole. It's very important that you understand that just because you have all these different arrows and some of them are bullet holes and some of them are not, doesn't mean that you don't need to know how to tune your bow. Super simple learning how to tune your bow. I would not be able to do it if it was difficult. I teach English to middle schoolers. I'm not a rocket scientist. So what I'm going to be doing in the full-length video, I'm going to be taking all of these that aren't bullet holes, so basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 8 here, and making them perfect bullet holes and showing you how much grip through paper really can affect that perfect setup that you technically have and can actually really give you a bad tear. Grip tuning is very important, torque tuning is very important, and knowing how your bow works is the most important of all. So that's all for this video. We'll get around to tuning this beautiful bouquet of arrows here in the coming weeks on the Average Jack Archery channel. So subscribe, stick around. Hopefully the lights will flicker less, and hopefully you're able to learn a little bit more about how your bow works, tuning your bow, make everything a lot simpler, and really open up the door to a lot of different arrow combinations and possibilities, regardless of what bow you shoot. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time. Muck boots make the best quivers.